It reminds me of that, like, first couple of episodes in the second season of Mr. Robot, after you realize who Christian Slater really is. Even though you were told that ahead of time, but the genius of that was watching Rami Malek reveal it to himself.
Right, yeah, watching him figure it out and all that. Yeah, that's what I got to go back to, because especially with him, taking up this mantle of being such a great actor and everything. I had that on, like, it was one that was on in the background and I was aware of the plot, but I wasn't really sitting and watching it. I do that with a lot of shows. That's one I got to go back to.
Season 1's epic. Absolutely epic. It's some of the best television I've ever seen. Season 2 is just tough. It's really tough. to keep up a sequel. It came back in season 3. And I think season 4 is it's there. It's not bad. It's not good. It's just like they needed to end it.
Yeah. See, I didn't stick with it, so I didn't get through seasons 3 and 4. So I don't blame you for new content to absorb if I go back to it too. So that's
ready when you are, Mike. I see you.
I just assume we've been live.
Welcome in the No House Advantage NBA Strategy Show. Myself and Terry are in the house. Mike Awesemo is producing, and you're hanging with us, so we appreciate that. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button, and you are subscribed across the board here. We have 3 channels in the works on Awesemo, the DFS channel right here, our season-long football, and, of course, our odds channel, which is growing by the second. And we always have projections. Alex and Team Awesemo, Terry, are kind enough to give us specific No House Advantage projections that we can use right through the multi-lineup, optimal lineup. So Awesemo has everybody prepared, at least to start the show, and then you're going to fill in the details.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know how prepared anybody can be with the current state of the NBA right now. I tell you, yeah, I was watching the strategy show and putting together my article and updating my own minutes and my spreadsheet and everything earlier. And I just started feeling like Nice Guy Eddie in that scene in Reservoir Dogs. I don't know who's alive. I don't know who's dead. I don't know who's caught. I don't know who's not. I don't know who's playing. I don't know what's going on. It is chaos out there. So we'll see where all this stuff lands. But it definitely creates some interesting talking points and some interesting prop situations on the board here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the beauty of it here is we'll try and take advantage of chaos. We'll try and take advantage of the unknown, the uncertainty, right? There's always some value in variance by all means. So let's look at that here. And again, is we constantly let you all know out there, and Mike Awesemo here is going to build this ticket behind us. We have the 10-point plays, the most confident of plays, all the way down to the 1 to 2 point plays. And the beauty of what you can do here with what Terry is giving you as far as, I really like this prop, but it's more of a 4 or 5 point play. You can create this in the multi-lineup generator where you can assign value, maybe a 7 to 6 to 5 point value, and that they'll put it in for you similar to a cruncher. So I just wanted to get that out there for people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about assigning the right spot in that lineup card to these different picks and, where you want to get them. Obviously, if we're giving you the win rates and the probabilities, you want to put the higher ones in the higher spots. It kind of comes together pretty nicely, but it's just so powerful. We talk about it every show. Just having Alex's projection right next to the line makes it somewhat obvious even without the percentage. If you see a pretty wide point gap on where Alex has him versus the line or vice versa, you know it's going to be a decent play. And then having the percentage there to just reaffirm that, it makes it really easy to make these decisions and rank them out on a card and put your plays together. So it's a great resource for this site. Can't say enough.
Yeah, let's jump into it here as we have everything out here for you. No House Advantage and the actual looking at projections and what to play as far as overs and unders. We always start by sorting, right, and make sure that we can identify any 100s. It's not often that we'll get a triple digit in here, a playable triple digit in here, right? But let's see. So sorting right away, we have Dennis Smith. PRA is a 100% chance of hitting under that 10.5. The PRA projection, Alex and Awesemo have him at 3.55. We have a couple of overs, but be careful because our projections haven't updated yet as far as 100 is concerned. So the best place to start looks like Dennis Smith under PRA.
Yeah, and that's an important note just real quick on the overs. There are a few overs listed on the board, but they're for players who have already scratched. So like LaMarcus Aldridge is listed as 100% to hit the under, 100% to hit one of those. I believe it's the over when we sort it because It was a low line for the situation we were expecting him to be in. But since he's not playing at all, just look at the projection on those when you do it real quick, guys. If you see a ton of hundreds for the same player, note the projection. It's at 0. So that can tell you right away, all right, this guy's just not going to play. That's why that's there. So, and hopefully those will come off in the next update. But yeah, if you see him like that, just always check what the projection is against the line. But yeah, the Smith one is extremely intriguing. And you see a number of his up in the 80s and 90s. I think calling it an actual 100% is a little tough. I'd rather we will list that at like 99.9, just because there is the chance that Dame Lillard comes up a little sore in his tummy or whatever it is, and doesn't play his full allotment of minutes, or somebody gets hurt or something like that. So 100% is a little dicey of a proposition, but this is really, really strong in terms of the PRA coming in on the under. We've got him projected at 3.5. He is projected for 5 and change minutes, 5.2 minutes in Alex's projections. He went 4 minutes going back to the bench in the last outing. He's gotten minutes recently because Dame was out, CJ's been out, Anfernee Simons was out, and a couple other rotation pieces. So he was the next up on the point guard list. But with Dame and Simons both in the rotation now, he's just a backup piece and a guy who's going to pick up scraps for minutes. There is the circumstance, like I was saying, where, it could result in him getting 12 minutes instead of 5, and then he's got a more reasonable shot at some of these. But at 10.5, I think even if he gets 12 minutes, something like that, you're still probably asking a bit more from him than we would expect to get to that 10.5. For the season, his average PRA is 11.2, but that's in 17.4 minutes.
Right.
So he needs to get out to that 17-minute range to be able to approach this mark. So totally confident in putting that one up near the top of the card.
That's a good point to raise, though, about projected minutes, and to try and keep an eye on what we technically, Alex and Awesemo, have for anybody who's that high for an under. Over is different, right? Because that's baked in to the expectation that the guy's going to be out there with volume of minutes to make something happen. But and I say this because this happens a lot in the NFL version of NHA. And if people aren't paying attention in the NBA, you can easily get bit by this. If you were to play somebody tonight, let's say you mentioned LaMarcus Aldridge, a guy who gets scratched, and you're pounding under props for that, you're not going to win anything. You have been removed, and you take an L. There's no void, nothing like that at the books. So be careful if you're playing somebody that looks like an absolute smash, but that guy, and Dennis Smith thankfully is not, but this guy's projected for 72 seconds in an NBA game. There's a pretty good chance that guy doesn't see the floor and you lose that prop.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to, you want to primarily focus on guys with at least reasonable expectation of minutes. Smith he's borderline in this one, right? We do have him projected at 5. Like I said, he played 4 minutes in the last game, so he does get on the court typically, but he is, edging toward the back end of the bench. They do still have other pieces that are still out. Like CJ's still going to miss this game, and a handful of other players are going to miss this game for them as well. But both of those guys are, forward. Greg Brown's a forward, Cody Zeller's a center. So it's not directly going to impact his minutes. A lot of the guys that would be rotating through him are going to be there. So it's dicey, but I would expect that he comes in around our minutes projection. If he gets 8, we're fine. If he gets 4, we're fine. If he doesn't take the court, we've got a problem. But I think we're going to see him on the court, and I think he's going to go under all of these different marks.
A quick reminder here, beyond hitting that thumbs up button, if you're hanging with myself and Terry, more importantly here, we have this promo code for you for a reason. The great people at No House Advantage are allowing us to match your first deposit. So you put in $25, use our promo code Awesemo. We'll match that. Now you have $50 to play with. As you'll see throughout on the backdrop here, these tournaments to get into on NHA, you're not battling the house, you're battling other people. So you want to get everything you can from Terry to what we have here on Awesemo. They're very cheap and affordable to get in. You're not going to spend that $50, that $25 you put in, and the $25 that we match on one contest. That's it. And then you're done. Like, you can make money last, especially if you're following our advice here. So real quick, you mentioned Anfernee Simons, Terry. That may be the next place to go, because it looks like the only other prop, and again, we have to maintain this for our people who are new to the NHA, you can only run Dennis Smith once. So don't think you can load up on unders for Dennis Smith Jr. You can only choose one of them. We happen to choose the one that has the most likelihood of hitting. Then you're down in the high 80s. The only other 90-plus percentile play is Anfernee Simons over PRA, and that's to your point, Terry, about him now coming back to the lineup.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really strong one, and it works well with the DSJ one. So if you want to book both of those into your lineup card, you're kind of telling the same story with both of those picks, right? Simon's going to be a big piece of the rotation. We've got him projected out to 29.7 minutes. We'll call it 30 minutes. In a 23.4-minute average for this season, he has an average PRA of 17.4. The line tonight is 15.5. So we've got him cruising way through that. We've got him projected at 22.49. I would expect that he's probably going to go beyond that, given what he averages in way fewer minutes. So I think that's a smash spot. And, just on the notion that unless he trips over the sideline and injures himself, we're confident that Simons is going to be out there for at least his 24-minute-ish average. And it's 90+% that he's going to see something more like 30 minutes. I would be a little bit more confident in booking this one in the top spot, just with that minor possibility that Dennis Smith ends up not playing. So maybe we do that if we're deciding, do we want this one in the top? It is taking a 91 over a 99, which is not necessarily the right thing to do here, but you do have that minor risk of Smith not taking the court. So at least account for that in some of the lineup cards and swap those picks. But I think those are the picks that belong 1-2 for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So we now move into the 80s territory here. And usually this is like the end of the show. Now, granted, there are only 3 games. Should have been 4, but you alluded to the COVID issues going on with the Bulls. So we only have 3 games to choose from. At the same time, we're starting to get into the high 80s. Now, we don't complain by any means if we're loading up plays that have an 89% chance of hitting, according to Alex and Awesemo's projections. That's not a bad thing by any means. But, we start to look below both Smith and, the other play with Simons. All of a sudden now, Mikal Bridges unders look like 87.6 for threes that we have for Bridges. Basically, his line is 2.5 on NHA, and we have him projected just over 1-3, and that's in that 87 percentile for an under. And then really, after Simons, we don't have a ton. Let's start there. Let's start with the projected threes for Bridges.
Sure. Yeah, that looks like a pretty solid one. I'm just pulling them up on the board here. Looks like he's taking 3-pointers a game, making 41.8% of them, but that only amounts to 1.3 per game, right? So we're going to have to see him take a couple additional shots here to be able to crack that line. So I think it's pretty effective. I think it's a good spot to attack with him projected, with the line sitting at 2.5. He's going to get basically his average minutes. He averages 34.6. We've got him projected for 34.4. That's totally a wash. You do get the situation where Phoenix is still playing without, most likely without Devin Booker. He's listed as a game time decision right now. They've got a handful of other guys out, but it's not really changing a lot of what Mikal Bridges does and does well on the court. So yeah, could he take 5 threes and make 2 of them? Sure. But he's still going to fall short of that line if he does that. He's going to need to take like 6-7 threes to come close to that line. So I think that's a pretty good mark, and 87% probability on Alex's board. Definitely nothing to sneeze at. And especially with the nature of this slate, with, like you were just saying, a lot of the picks in the 80s and falling into the 70s that we might even talk about. I actually think that's to our advantage, getting a slate like this, because a lot of them, when there's 99s, 100s, and there's a few of those, it becomes somewhat obvious, right? You're attacking spots that the public kind of understands. This guy's only going to play a few minutes, et cetera, et cetera. You get some of those. When you get lines that are more efficient and tighter probabilities like this, having Alex's picks and having these outcome percentages at our disposal is a tremendous advantage over people who are kind of blindly making these picks. So I think this is actually a slate that favors people who are using our tools pretty significantly.
Yeah, and what also helps is if the analyst on these shows is talking about a team that he roots for on a nightly basis, and such is the case with another Emmanuel Quickley prop here. The PRA that we have projected is just under 21. NHA has the line set at 15.5. So now your guy's got an 87% shot of clearing the over of PRA.
Yeah, not a bad spot there. Knicks, another team with major questions in the rotation. We've got RJ Barrett, Obi Toppin confirmed out. Quentin Grimes, who picked up a bunch of minutes the other night, is out now. He joined them on the COVID protocol list. They're getting Alec Burks back, which does throw another ball handler into the mix. But Kemba's still banished. I don't expect we'll ever see him take the court again. Although knowing Tibbs, you could just throw him out there for like 35 minutes tonight, and God knows. I love
The best
Tibbs, but
people.
man, I don't like projecting his minutes. I love him as a coach, but woof, he makes it difficult.
Well, you might bench people in an 8-point game for no reason either. You never know.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's just a matter of who's giving him the right attitude on the floor, who's playing tough defense, and he doesn't particularly care what the score is or what they're doing offensively. So,
or what the line is.
Right. Yeah, definitely what the line is. But yeah, I do like this spot for Quickley. We've got him projected for a 30-minute night. In 21 and a half minutes a night, he averages a 14.4 PRA, and the line's only 15.5. So that seems like it's pretty easy for him to crack with 9 additional minutes on the boards. And even if he goes, 28 minutes, sees a little bit of a haircut, 26 minutes, I still think we get there. It's not a difficult idea to see him get to that one. So definitely with high confidence, we can put that one on our card here as well.
I love it. All right, let's see here now. As we're still in the high 80s, I want to get back to the unders. Is we kind of looked over Jay Crowder here, and that's my fault, right? The PRA for Jay Crowder is 21.5. We have Alex and Awesemo have the projection at 16.67, which gives it an 89% chance of falling under for Crowder.
Yeah, that one looks like it's inflated still. Crowder was seeing minutes in the 30s over the last handful, 31 in 2 games ago, 3 games ago, 4 games ago, but fell back to his typical, he had 25 minutes in the last game and the last time out, averages 27.9 for the season. We've got him projected at 27.8, and he gives us a 15.6 average. So we've actually got him projected for a additional 1 above his PRA average, but it's still well short of the 21.5. I think that line's just wrong. And just based on him seeing more, upwards of 30 and change minutes tonight, which we're not expecting for him here. So, given everything that we know about the current situation, about the role, and potentially with more players coming back to join them, I definitely think it gives him a haircut here, and that's a pretty good spot to attack as well. If something changes with that rotation, if you end up seeing, that's one to keep an eye on. If you end up seeing all of like Eytan, Booker, Nader, Smith, all the guys who are game time decisions right now, if you end up seeing all these guys out, maybe you see those minutes tick up. So keep an eye on the minutes projection for Jay Crowder. If it gets over 30, 31, then maybe you give this one a little bit of a bump down. But right now where it stands, I like it a lot.
So we've got a couple of more guys here in that like mid to low 80s range. Boucher rebounds is one to keep an eye on. That's actually at 86. Just over 86% chance of going under there in the Raptors game. So maybe that's one to look at before we start getting into the bottom 80s, even high 70s before we get out.
Yeah, that one's an over, actually. The Boucher rebound.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
No,
You're right.
Yeah, no worries.
I restored it and forgot to adjust my brain.
The brain's always the last thing to adjust for me.
Seriously.
So, yeah, we've seen Boucher get a little bit of an uptick in minutes with, another rotation just kind of thrust into chaos. The list of players out for Toronto tonight already that we know about is Precious Achiuwa, OG Anunoby, Danilo Blanton, Kem Birch, Goran Dragic, and Johnson. Who's D. Johnson? Whoever D. Johnson is. It's not popping into my brain. Regardless, all those guys are going to be out, right? So, right. So that's creating a situation for Boucher. He's been getting a big minutes uptick. He saw 22 the last time out, 28 the game before that, 22 the game before that. So 24-minute average over the last 3. I think 5.5. I keep jumping to the PRA, the points plus rebounds. 5.5 is going to be pretty easy for him to beat. We've got him projected for a 25.7-minute night. He grabs 4.5 rebounds in 14.5 minutes, or a 15-minute average for the season. So give him an additional 10 minutes. I like him to get 1 extra rebound. We've got him projected at 7.5. I think that's probably a little bit low, honestly. So I think he smashes that one.
Looking here, back to the unders, Paul pretty much has a list of props that are all in that 81 range from 81.96 down to 81.16. So a 0.8% difference. And they're all unders here. And it's a bigger name. And Paul, we have Green as well on the assist. Got nailed on that last night. He did go over that 8.5 number. So interesting to see on the back-to-back how that plays. But that's also at 81.06. So you've got 2 bigger names at least here, and pretty decent percentages attached to their unders in Paul, which is pretty much everything PRA and points, and then also Draymond with assists.
Yeah, those are both interesting spots. I feel like the Paul lines are a little bit inflated, just given that situation where he's seen a little bit more usage. He's seen a little bit more of an increase in his assist rate. The number's not in my head, but it goes from something like 43% to something like 49% with Booker off the court on the assist rate. It's a massive number. Well, it's 42.5 is his for the season average, and I believe it goes to like 49% with Booker off. So he just does more. It's not the situation where he's getting more minutes necessarily. There's just a lot more for him to do in terms of taking shots, in terms of him facilitating the offense. But these are probably a little high given the fact that Booker and a number of other players are at least game time decisions. So it's another one where I would watch the news. If you get Booker in, these are probably high. If you get some of these other players in, it might not necessarily impact Chris Paul directly. So it's really about whether Booker plays or not. They might be a little high anyway. In 32.4 minutes per game, which is what we've got Paul projected for tonight, he averages a 28.1 PRA, and it's at 36.5 tonight. So that's high. And we've got him projected high. We've got him projected at 30.3. So we've got him projected above the average, but it seems aggressively high. So I think even in this situation where Booker doesn't go, maybe it's not 81% likely to hit, but maybe it's in the 70s. So I think that one's one we can include definitely as a rotational piece as we build these lineup cards.
Booker's in, you lock that in, right?
Excuse me?
If Booker's in, you lock that under in for Paul, right?
The under? Yeah, if Booker plays, you definitely, you lock that in for sure. Yeah. Yep.
Because that you can argue as much as if Booker's out, that could drop in the 70s. If Booker is officially in, you can make an argument this pushes it up maybe to the mid-high 80s.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got it set as going 81% under in a projection that has Booker not playing. Right.
Got it. Okay, see what you're
saying. Right. So we dramatically increase the under probability if Booker does take the court.
Yeah, Steph might set this record, unfortunately, Terry, in the first quarter. He's 2 from passing Ray Allen, and clearly this team has not looked like itself. This is definitely weighing down on them. But we've also seen Green, especially last night against the Pacers, just because you only really have 3 guys, I think, right on the Warriors that are averaging double figures, turning into that facilitator. 8.5. I know that his average is right around there for the season. I was a little surprised, especially coming off of a big night passing the ball, that Alex has his projection at just 6.79, but that translates to an 81% under.
Yeah, I was surprised to see that one too. It's a little bit, we've got him projected at 6.79, like you said. It's below his seasonal average, which is 7.3 in the same amount of minutes. We've got him projected at 30.2 minutes, his exact minutes average. So I was a little surprised to see that we had it so aggressively under both his average and the line, considering that he averages beneath the line by basically a full assist and change. I'm comfortable saying that this is a pretty good percentage and a pretty good call by Alex's numbers. Even if it comes in, if he hits his average, we're talking about it missing. So maybe even if it's a little bit high at 81%, we shave it down a little bit, considering Draymond's a good passer and a guy who can get this done. Even if we're putting it in the 70s, I think it makes sense to target this one in comparison to where some of the others are.
Anything else you want to hit on the way out that maybe looked a little off, that you thought not only is that projection good, but I can reinforce it, pound it, or maybe there was something on the other side that you looked at that seemed a little off that you want to take advantage of from an under?
I would say keep an eye on the Kevin Durant news as relates to any number of different Brooklyn picks that might be on the board. That could definitely change those from unders to overs pretty quickly. You see a guy like right now, the Patty Mills PRA is at 74.35. We've got him projected at 19.43. The line is 16.5. Assuming Durant ends up not playing, that takes another jump just on the idea that there's going to be more minutes for everybody. There's going to be more for the players who are available to do when they're on the court. So that's one that I would keep my eye on. And that impacts, guys like James Harden, of course, would have a massive usage uptick in that situation. And anybody who's on the court for the Nets is going to be relevant. Similar story for the Knicks in terms of just there being a lot to do for some of these guys, but that's baked into what we've got right now. And it doesn't look like anybody's exploding up the board other than Quickley. So I would say just keep an eye on news. If you do see something wacky like Derrick Rose not playing or Alec Burks sitting out because he'd been sitting out or goes back on the COVID list, or somebody who's not been on the COVID list do end up there, definitely smash some various nicks in either direction, because that's going to create an opportunity there as well. And that's true about every situation on the board tonight. It's just so wildly unpredictable. So keep an eye on the news. It's going to be the biggest factor for both DFS and for sites like that work on prop picks.
I know Burks coming back pushes Rose deeper into the rotation off the bench, but does he have a shot of not playing tonight?
No. I'm just saying Derrick Rose is, in terms of Derrick Rose seeing massive minutes over the last couple,
right.
In terms of Derrick Rose just having creaky knees and everything like that. He's a guy that typically, you don't want out there for 35 minutes. Right. So I was just saying, if he comes up gimpy today and doesn't play, or if, knock on wood, it doesn't happen, but a couple more guys land on this COVID list, it seems like both New York teams dealing with significant COVID outbreaks. So I was just throwing a possibility into the wind there, but no news on that by any means.
I asked because I put on the odds channel for tonight's best bets the under 17.5 points for Rose as one of them, because of Burks coming back and just them struggling to score, etc. But I don't want it to be voided. I'd rather it just hit.
Yeah, definitely. You want that to actually come through, especially when you're backing it on something like that.
Absolutely.
And it makes a ton of sense. Yeah, Alex has him projected under that point total, so I like that call by you too. And with Burks coming back, additional ball handler in the rotation, and I think Derrick Rose is Tibbs' guy. He loves Derrick Rose, but I think he sees Derrick Rose for what he is these days, as that like valuable contributor off the bench, a guy who can be a very effective scorer as a six man, and he's very comfortable having Burks be the prime ball handler. He likes a big guard and all of those things, so I could definitely see that having an impact on Derrick Rose overall here.
All right, we appreciate everybody hanging with us. Thanks to Mike Awesemo producing. Terry, thank you, sir. We'll be back next week to look at the following slate, another Tuesday night to look at in the NBA. And on your way out, if you haven't already, sign up for No House Advantage and use this promo code Awesemo, and we'll match your first deposit up to $25. You see in the background throughout this show opportunities to jump in, some bigger tournaments, some lower tournaments if you're just new to it. Either way, your skill set will be honored here. You can win some money on No House Advantage. For Terry, for Mike, for all of you out there, we appreciate you hanging with us. We'll see you next week.